happy to have Allie Andrews with me today here at the home office in Macon in the studio. Allie is our Georgia Farm Bureau Young Farmers and Ranchers Chair. Good afternoon, Allie. I almost said good morning. Sorry.
That's okay.
My day is flying by, honestly.
Yes. No, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, like I said, Allie is our GFB YF&R Chair. I just want to, first and foremost, before we get into your involvement with Farm Bureau and your involvement with young farmers and ranchers, let's just talk about you. Give me some background, give me some information that you think people out there listening right now to this podcast would be interested in hearing about you.
That's a great question. So I grew up in Jackson, Georgia. My daddy was from Chicago, so he's a total Yankee. My mom is a Southern Belle as it comes. June Cleaver is what was her nickname. It was great growing up. And so I did not grow up, unfortunately, really around agriculture. My dad had a business in a local, a neighboring county, and it was a hydraulic and cylinders and, whatever that entails.
Interesting.
And then my mom was in banking. And so, we went to the school there in Jackson, which is Butts County. And so, yeah, I say this to a lot of people, the only ag-related thing that I could probably muster up from my growing up was that I always wanted a horse.
Okay.
I didn't know what that entailed, having a horse. And luckily, my dad knew that he didn't either.
Yeah.
So, but no, we had some land and, we rode four-wheelers and stuff like that. We shot shotguns every weekend, but it was not an ag background by no means.
Gotcha.
So then I grew up, obviously, and went to a local college right there in Barnesville, Gordon College, and played soccer there and loved it. And then I was in school for business. And in the midst of that, met my husband, where he is from Barnesville, which is where the college is. But he was actually really good friends with my brother. So I'd always known of Luke. And I knew that they had a big farm and things like that. I just saw cows in a field. I didn't know what that consisted of. And then in 2011, there was a bad tornado that came through Lamar County and really a little bit through Griffin and Jackson on the south end side. And that's when I started, we started talking. I started asking Luke, oh, man, how's the property, stuff like that. And so, that kindled into a relationship. Now we're married. So Luke is a fifth-generation cattle farmer. And we now are first-generation poultry growers and hay producers.
Wow.
Yeah, so we do a lot. We have a lot of hats now.
Yeah.
And now I could not picture doing anything but agriculture.
Okay,
So,
that's awesome.
cool. Yeah.
Question. I have a question because I think when you said first generation chicken, like poultry farmers.
Yeah.
What? Because we hear it. I hear it a lot. With my job and what I do and traveling the state, and you hear about making sure that you're vertically integrating your farm, right? What was that? The reason why y'all decided to do chickens, or
Yeah, absolutely. So, not to put a damper, but my husband at the time was still a full-time firefighter.
Okay.
And so anybody in ag, I don't know if they're like us, but we hated using the term hobby farm.
Yeah.
And so when we got married, it was just cattle. We had about, I don't know, his dad and granddad and all them started it. His mom was very involved. She was from an ag background too.
Okay.
And so we just fed cows, and the cows is what paid for the taxes and the bills. Yeah. It wasn't a operation,
Right, yeah.
And so when his dad got diagnosed with cancer, unfortunately passing away of pancreatic cancer, Luke was like, all right, I'm ready to go for it.
Okay.
I want to be 100% ag. I want to, that be our job. And so we looked at our land and the scope of the land and all that. And the best way to grow with the land style that we had was poultry houses. Okay. And so, we already had, that's the biggest thing with poultry people. If you don't have the land, that's what's hard to get. So you're borrowing money for land, and then you're borrowing money to build. Mm-hmm. And so, we had the land, so it was easy to, well, it wasn't easy, but it was the next step was just to borrow to build.
Okay.
So the criteria financially wasn't as strenuous as both.
Gotcha.
So our land mass is what led us to he wanted a row crop, but we just didn't have enough to row crop to make a good make a good crop. So, yeah, that's how the poultry got started. And then from there, we're like, okay, we're buying all this hay.
Yeah.
Why don't we just produce our own?
Okay.
So then we started leasing local land around us and honestly kind of snatching it so it wouldn't become a neighborhood, essentially. And so now we do about 250 acres of hay with leased land, and then land that touches ours that we were blessed enough with Luke's mom's support to open up more land that touches our farm that's now we bought, you know, that she got as and now it's another 120 acres of hay that's right next to us. So that's like a blessing.
Yeah, for sure. Do you all use it simply for y'all's cattle operation, or do you also sell it retail?
We sell almost triple what we keep for us.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So like yesterday we were doing baleage wrapping and on maybe 40-acre field. Okay. Maybe not that much. I don't know. I'm not that genius. Yeah. Luke does that
when
department.
You start talking about acres, I'm like, I don't know.
Whatever the
it looks like 50. It could be 250.
Right. Whatever the span is, we got 108 bales, and we were like, what? Off of that? So I don't know. This is terrible. I don't know if that means it was like 20 acres or 40 acres, but 108 bales, regardless, was huge to get that much off that.
That's awesome.
So, but there, that's just that one cutting. Yeah. And hopefully our goal every year, like other hay producers, is to have up to 3 cuttings a year. So.
I want to move into your role with. Within the organization, as you know, not only your role but your involvement with young farmers and ranchers. Let's just start either, maybe how you got involved with Farm Bureau or how you got involved with young farmers and ranchers. Maybe it's synonymous. Maybe it happened at the exact same time. But talk about that journey, because you've made it now. I've seen you around. I've been here for 8 years, I think. Yeah, 8 years in August, and I've seen you around, you and your husband, and just talk about that journey and how that came about, I guess.
So it's crazy because like I said, Luke is from an ag background, both sides, his dad's side and his mom's side, and so Luke's uncle was on our local board as a board member. He was actually vice president, and he did like 1,000 acres of row crop and cotton and soybeans, all that. And so he's the one that suggested for Luke and I to go to YF&R. Our county does not have a lot of young farmers, and at this time we were about the only interest, really. I mean, I'm sure there were others, but there wasn't any that was ready to go to just, what does this summer leadership even mean? So sadly, we went in totally blind to our first summer leadership conference, but that's how we got asked to go, was by our county and by really his uncle's involvement. And so we went for the first year. I want to say it was 2017 or 18, and maybe it was 2017. And we were blown away. We were like, we are fish bait, totally hooked.
That's hilarious.
We loved the networking. I mean, our first year there, we probably went home with 5 new families all across the state. And then all this, and I think that's really what kind of kept hitting the plug to Luke to let's just do this. Let's dive in. And so ever since then, we went 2 years, and then the wonderful COVID hit. Yeah. And I don't know if it was a year or 2 off that we took.
I don't remember. Times the Flat Circle, especially during COVID, I think I disassociated, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's I don't even remember 2020.
I don't either.
I want to say I know it was definitely 2020. I think 2021 didn't happen either.
No, I want to say it was 2-year gap.
I think it was a 2-year gap. I think you're right.
Yeah. And now that I'm looking back, it was actually 2016, because we had our first son in 2015, and I was pregnant my first year at summer conference. It was really 2016. So we went for 2 years, and then a year was in between, and then COVID for 2 years. So we had a 3-year gap. And so we got back. It was either 22, I guess, then. We got back involved and going, and then we kept noticing these leaders. We didn't know what it meant. We saw staff, but then we saw friend leaders, and what is that? What are they doing? Yeah. And so our DFM, Carrie, who is amazing, was like, hey, would y'all be interested in being on the committee next year? I'm like, sure. We don't know what that means, but yes, sign me up. Yeah. And so I will say yes to everything. And Luke is like, oh, we need to check our timing. He's more reserved, and I'm just like all in.
Yeah.
So we ground each other a lot. But no, we're so thankful that we said yes, because last year we were on as a serving committee member. And, Cleve and Amelia Jackson were the committee chairs, and they were just wonderful mentors on like what it consists of being a committee member committee member. And then we got to talking on, the DC trip was super empowering. And we got to talking to them about really like who's going to be the chair for next year and what the chair consists of. And unfortunately, with Luke aging out, it would have just been me to apply or to, I guess, go, what do you call it when you go campaign, as you would say, to the other committee members. And that's how I got voted on by the committee members to represent for, committee chair next year, and alongside Cole and Nicole Roper, who are fantastic. I love serving with them, and our whole committee really this year now as the chair, we couldn't have asked for a better new committee people to come up in the old committee places. There's a big shoes to fill, and you're always worried like, all right, who's going to come serve alongside of you? Is it going to be the same connections? Is it going to be different? It's been great.
Awesome.
So that's what's led us to now. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. First off, shout out to Carrie. Love Carrie.
We love you.
The Carrie's great, and Cleve and Amelia, they're great too. I've gotten to know them very well.
Yeah.
So, you're right. I think they're great mentors from definitely
sure.
what I've seen. So. Okay, awesome. Well, a couple of things to dissect based off of what you said, because I want to, and the previous episode I talked to Levi Davis, the coordinator for the program, but I want to get your perspective of this as well. So, let's dive in because you just came off the trip.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You just came off the trip, YF&R trip to DC. I want you to kind of get, one that cool aspect and one of the big aspects of not only just YF&R but the organization is to advocate, and that is y'all's biggest advocating trip of the year to go to DC. Talk about that experience. I think you've been a couple times.
Yes. Okay. I'm so thankful that this year was my second year in a row.
Okay.
And I'm glad it was in a row and there wasn't a gap because you get so busy with life, you go back and like, oh, I've got to plug back into this mindset. So last year was our first year. And to be honest with you, I'm very political, but I'm not political. Like I love
There is a distinct difference.
There totally is. And so I would have never thought that Farm Bureau would have such involvement in the political world, but now understanding the background as to why they do, because who else is going to go up there and fight for the farmers? Yeah. We're busy. We're not going to be in Washington, and that's 100% why I'm thankful that Farm Bureau does send people.
Yeah.
And so I've told this to the last two committees, like last year and this year, I've said to me, the best trip, and I've been to AFBF and I've been to Colorado for the Fusion, and they're wonderful. But the best advocacy part of it and understanding the importance of being at your capital, even on a state level, especially on a state level, and then branching up to a national level, that exposure is like no other. Yeah. Nobody else is going to go up there and tell somebody your operational problems, what you're suffering with, what you need to see at the Farm Bill at that level of on our operation versus to your doorstep of your office. Hey, this is something we're struggling with. We got to let him know of problems that we're seeing trying to get our interest rates down or trying to buy another farm or trying to get involvement in any area for the young farmers that are wanting to get a loan. And so they didn't know there's all these hurdles that we as young farmers have to go through because of our age with credit and all that, or even the Farm Bill. Like I think of our row croppers that's on our committee, cotton hasn't changed in 30 years.
Right, yeah.
But the price of operating is astronomical.
Yeah. Look at the price of a new harvester.
Yes.
$1.2 million.
Yeah, versus what they get for their cotton. It's like 70 cents, 74 cents, whatever it is. Yeah. So that, unfortunately, a congressman has many, many, many things to do. And so, obviously, agriculture is Georgia's #1 commodity. And so, to see that, like, what are you struggling with? And they are concerned, and it was good for them to come in and ask us questions. So I think that exposure alone to these young farmers, like, no, I got to go work my operation. I don't have time to go up there and do that. Like, they're not going to listen to me anyways.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to listen if you're not there.
Yeah.
So, I could not speak more highly on the advocacy of going to DC. And for me, a plug here, if people that are listening don't go to, especially the farmers that are listening, if they don't go to our state capitol when we do in February, that is the perfect little nugget for getting you to Washington.
A little snippet.
Yes, to understand the importance of what DC does. And it really is a good instrument to use to get people to DC for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, that's one thing I will, Washington is overwhelming. I'm sorry. Like, the first time I went, I don't think that I don't, if somebody could ask me what my name was, I don't think I could have answered them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know.
Well, and I have the guide, the guidance of Farm Bureau.
Yeah.
Like, if me and Luke were going to go, we're going to go talk to our congressman because we need them to know this.
Yeah.
We can't go do that.
Such a whole other world.
Yeah, so for Farm Bureau to set up people to show us what to do and what to say, what's coming up.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great. I mean, and I like the fact that you got to go back because it helped you. You're more comfortable at that point. And that's one thing about that. I always go obviously as staff, and I help tell the story of what you guys are doing and whatnot, cover the event itself. But it is so neat. It really is so neat to watch the congressmen and their staff engage with you guys.
They do have genuine questions.
They do.
And concerns.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's just neat to see the process because, like, to your point, I'm busy on the farm. Well, but also at least you have to at least try. Yeah. And to the credit, we obviously have lobbyists, and they're kind of speaking on your behalf or on behalf of Georgia Farm Bureau for sure in our policy. But it makes, you can tell to me it makes a big difference for sure. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you had a good time. Let's move into SLC now, Summer Leadership Conference. And we talked about it a great deal that last episode, so I'm not going to try to beat the dead horse, if you will. But I do want, again, like, your perspective. For someone out there listening, that maybe they're in the 18 to 35-year-old gap. Maybe they heard the last episode and they kind of have their ears perked up, right? For someone that's involved in the program, you're chairing the program at this point. Speak to Summer Leadership Conference in the significance that it made in your YF&R or even your Farm Bureau journey, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. So I think number one, this may be a weird answer, but number one for me, it was a family involvement. Like, they plug into the kids just as much as they're plugging into Luke and I. And so my kids every year are like, when are we going to go to that beach camp, Mom? We need to go to that beach camp. And so the kids come back with so much, just like we're coming back with. And then, like I said earlier, the connections that we've made. I could be like I was traveling from South Georgia yesterday. And if I were to break down on the side of the road, I know that there's the Morgans. I could call the Morgans like, Lindsay, come pick me up. I'm broke down. There's so many connections that have been made through summer leadership, but there's also so much education that Luke and I have both learned and we've brought home with to a certain extent where, now that we're on the committee and last year being on the committee, we brought those speakers of breakouts to our district meetings to plug into there. And then it's just exposure. Farming, and I've said this even before getting involved in Farm Bureau, I told my husband, even him coming from a firefighting brotherhood type thing, I said, I look at farmers the same way. Like, we truly want each other to succeed. It is not, to me, it's not a competition. Yeah. And that's what makes it relatable. So the exposure that you're not in it alone, we have the same struggles, but then we also have the same rewards, and we are cheering each other on. Yeah. And it's funny, this year I think we're actually going to be able to take our 19-year-old ranch hand with us. Awesome. He's the coolest kid. He's worked with us since he was a sophomore in high school. And I wish I would have gotten that exposure sooner. Yeah. Luke and I, we were married 4 years before 3 or 4 years before we went to summer leadership. Okay. And now we're married 12. we could have been involved for 12 years now.
Yeah.
And so he's a 19-year-old kid. What if he, I'd love to keep him on the farm, but what if he goes to summer leadership and realizes he wants to go to DC and be a lobbyist and fight for us?
Yeah.
Or what if he goes to summer leadership and realizes, man, I want to own my own farm one day. I can do it. I don't have to just be a ranch hand. I want to go do it.
It's awesome.
So I think exposure, man, that exposure is so important. And that's why, like, the age of 18, I definitely think they need to keep that exposure for a while before they plug into like a leadership role, just to keep learning, come absorb, be a sponge, soak in all that you can soak in, and then plug in. Plug in somewhere. So I could not say enough about the way that Farm Bureau, organizes summer leadership.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, so that's one thing I was going to transition to next is summer leadership organization. Obviously, yes, it's a GFB event, but you guys have, as committee chairs, or as a committee conjoined, you guys are, help shape that.
Right.
Talk about that aspect of it too, because, you don't just, it's not like you just kind of, I'm on the YF&R committee, and then you just kind of show up. It's you put work in.
Oh yeah, it's all hands on deck, and so I didn't realize that till last year, and I love it. Like we get down there early. We want to help the staff set up. Our group, because of the leaders, I feel like, of Cleve and Amelia, we don't just watch y'all set up. If we're on a committee group, we want to help y'all. No, we're not getting paid to sit here and help y'all put out boxes and hang up T-shirts and put up tables. No, but like we're going to lead this conference, and we want to lead the next committee to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And Cleve and Amelia did a fantastic job of doing that. So yeah, we get down there. We want to work hand in hand with you guys, and just make it the best conference that it can be. Every year we want to see it get better and better and better. So we get down there, we set up. I love that we do a service project. It's just our way of giving back. And as the committee group, as leaders, we want to bring in anybody that's a part of the conference to go help too. It's not a one-man show. It can't be. It's too big. You have 600 plus farmers there.
Right.
It's all hands on deck. We just want to be able to plug in as best as we can and be used as best as we can to serve. It's bigger than just our committee. It's bigger than just the staff. It's a full network of a conference. And it's not a one-man show. One person can't do it all. It's impossible for getting the speakers. And so that is one thing that we do as a committee. We meet up a few times a year before conference, go over some ideas of who would we like to hear from based off of feedback from the last year. Who do we want to hear from this year? What are some breakouts that maybe people are really wanting to chime into? What are some opportunities for serving? Is it the service project that we did last year? Is it something we want to do different? So we definitely meet to organize those things, and I'm excited about this year. We've got some great speakers. We got some great breakouts in the works.
Good.
And so that takes a committee effort.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think let's transition now a little bit, if we will.
Sure.
As chair, I guess you assumed the role in December at our state convention, correct? Okay. So as taking the position and as looking to be chair, what was something that you wanted to do? What I guess. This sounds dramatic when I say it, but in terms of a legacy, right? Okay. If you will, just oblige me with it. It's not, there's a different term, right? But in terms of a legacy, or in terms of of how you wanted to possibly maybe shape the program,
right.
Maybe you wanted to shape the YF&R conference this summer, or whatever that may be. What is something that you brought into this role that you want to see happen, I guess?
I think my biggest prayer to lead this group, and obviously it's an honor, and I'm so blessed that, my committee chose me to do it. But I think the mark I want to leave for the next chair and the next committee, the next farmer sitting in the auditorium at Summer Leadership, is to don't stop there.
Okay.
keep going. I think it's easy to unplug once we age out. You know, my husband unfortunately has aged out. He's 36. He's a little old. Sorry.
Dang.
Just kidding. Just called him out. Just called him out on a podcast.
Shots fired.
I love you. But you know, I think it's easy to just to go through life and then when you age out, or when you're getting like, I'm like sad I'm 33 and I've only got two more conferences and I'm done.
Yeah.
But I don't have to be.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that I want to leave a mark on is to don't stop. Keep going, keep plugging into Farm Bureau, whether it be, you know, getting on your board. Keep building relationships. You know, still we may be aging out, but we still have so much to pour in. And my goal for our county level, even if it doesn't happen as a state level, which would be a great goal to have, but I got to start small. Let's be realistic.
Yeah.
So as a county level and as a district level, really even, is to have a mentorship program. Like, my heart is for plugging into people and letting people know, you know, this is a very, I think of the berries, you know, this is a very mental job.
Yeah.
And if we're not careful, we are not checking on our people. And, you know, agriculture, everything is against us.
Yeah.
Whether it's the weather, you know, whether it's finances, whether it's, you know, you feel like you're alone. And I think once you age out, you have this committee, you have this summer conference that you get to pour into these people. People are pouring into you. But then you age out, there's nothing left.
Right.
So we think. So I would love to see a mentorship program started. And it doesn't even have to be just with our state board plugging into committee boards, or a state board plugging into farmers. It could be at a county level. It could be at a district level. Let's plug into these people who are in that gap of, I'm ready to take over, or I'm ready to branch out on my own.
Okay.
I really, 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 really want to see a mentorship program started. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
You know, God may flourish something in the next, you know, within the next few months that I still have to serve on the committee as chair. But that's been my biggest prayer, is to start a mentorship, because, you know, I look at my husband. And I don't say this to sound depressive, but, you know, his dad's passed away. That leader for him is passed away. All right, who can plug into him?
Yeah.
If when he's feeling anxious, and we see it in our men, we see it in women in ag, who's plugging into the people that feel isolated? You know, I don't have a committee group to call for a shoulder to lean on, per se. So I definitely want to do a plug for our presidents, Matt and Leighton Cooley and Matt Bottoms. You know, they've been, and even Marcus South, I mean, they've been huge mentors to Luke as a leader of succession planning, to move up, to take over, what that's going to look like next. You know, if it weren't for those men, who's out there that's alone and doesn't have that? Because he has aged out. Yeah, we're still serving. He's still serving on our county level. But, like, it's bigger than that with agriculture, you know, and they're in the same commodity group that we're in. And so I think that's the biggest thing. We're going to do a panel, I think, this year at Summer Leadership on what's next, how to stay involved. And that's the biggest thing, staying involved. And then that mentorship is really what I'd like to see flourish. And it may just take this year of me being the chair to, you know, ice the water a little bit, to get that idea out there. Right. I don't want to stop just because my service year has stopped.
Right.
You know, whatever I can do next year, just to keep fighting for really a mentorship program is really been my heart.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to pick your brain about something, and I don't think this is not like I feel like we've been talking about it for a couple of years now. Succession planning, right? And just figuring out, like, you know, what comes next. Either, you know, you can put that on a personal level of, you know, your farm, or you can look at it from an organizational standpoint. But the overall goal of Farm Bureau in itself is to advocate and to you know, reach, to have outreach, to at least bring awareness would be probably the best way to put it. With that being said, you know, what are something, or what are your thoughts? Probably would be the best way to put it, of the next generation of young farmers and ranchers. You know, how do y'all focus on trying to get new people involved? And, you know, what do you, from someone that I would say it didn't grow up in Farm Bureau by any means. How do you do that? You know, I think that's to me that's an interesting perspective of we always want to keep bringing people in, and how do you all focus either as a committee, or what is something that you see as a way to do that?
That's a great question, and I think it's not talked about enough.
Okay.
So I would say I was just at a conference with actually Nicole Roper. We were riding back 8 hours. She was stuck with me in a car, and she's an ag teacher.
Okay.
And so
that's right. Yeah.
Jackson did not the school that I went to. They didn't even really have a big ag program, and so I think our ag teachers, shout out to all y'all, because I feel like maybe if I would have gotten plugged into ag in a school level, I could have, grew up wanted to be an ag. So I think it starts even that small.
Okay.
And so something that we do that I didn't mention earlier is that a few years ago, I really just, all I want to talk about is advocacy. And so I started a farm camp at our farm.
Wow.
And, our neighbor started a horse camp. And that's where I kind of got the idea, was from her horse camp. And so I was like, man, we do cows and hay, and what kid don't want to come play with a bunch of baby chickens,
Right, yeah.
And so they got that exposure. A lot of the families that come, none of them are farmers. Some of them are lawyers. Some of the families are teachers. Some of the families are, stay-at-home moms or homeschool moms. None of these kids have any ag relationships. And so, to a certain extent. And so now I did it 1 summer, 1 week, 1 summer. And that was 5 years ago. I'm going into my 4 years ago, I'm going to my 5th year of doing it. And so I started with 1 week that 1 summer. Now this summer I have 4 weeks of farm camps coming up.
Wow.
And it's 2 in June, 2 in July. And what I do is I bring these kids ages 5 to 12, and we have a Wednesday to Friday or a Monday to Wednesday. They're on the farm for 3 days. And they're 9 to 2. So the first 2 days, they bring their sack lunch. We have a big picnic in the middle of the field or in the yard or something. And 1 day is cattle day. So what that's going to consist of is we're going to go ride. We have a big hay wagon trailer, and we're going to go ride around the cattle herd. And they're going to see the mama calves next to each other. I'll go into all that, like what breed we have, what the the process of birth is. And it's pretty cool. This last December I did one over the Christmas break, and
wow.
Sorry moms that the kids participated this week, but they got to see a calf born. And they're like, awesome. Oh my gosh, they were traumatized. Some of them were. And so they got to see all that. Like, food is not just your hamburger.
Yeah.
Like, where does it start? And so we do that. We take them through. We do our own banning and winging and shots and all that right there on site. So I actually get them in the tub, the Holden tub. We go down the lane, we get in the Holden tub, they walk through the chute, and they stand there like with their head in the head gate. We get pictures and, and I go through the process. Like, we get them right here. It does not hurt them. The cows are totally fine. They're happy. We do give them some shots. So we go over the medical part of that. What it comes to, we have to judge their weight, and, the sex of the cow determines what ear tag they get.
Right.
My husband has it backwards. The boys are in the right ear and the girls are in the left ear. I've complained about that for years, but and so then the next day we go over the chicken houses. And,
okay.
We have 44 by 600 chicken houses, and that's the size of them. So if we don't have birds on this particular week, we make the kids race the 600-foot chicken house. It's hilarious. They give up about halfway.
Yeah.
And then we go over the water lines and the process of the fan speed and, how we needed the well and, just crazy. Right. You wouldn't even know your chicken nugget from Chick-fil-A had to go through all that to get on your plate.
Yeah.
And so the feed bins, what's in their feed, corn, soybean, all that. And then the last day is a hay day. And then my husband and I just decided to put more on our plate this year and plant this huge garden. So then we'll do a garden and hay day. And what kid doesn't want to go jump on hay bales?
Yeah.
Do red light, green light. So we do all that. And we do a project that was from our Cattlemen Association. And it's, what's in the hay, the nutrients, the nitrogen, like all this stuff to produce the food that the cow needs that produces the food from the cow that you eat.
Okay.
So it's a whole life cycle of animals. And so then it's really cool. My aunt is the catering director for Zaxby's. And so we sell our chicken, Purdue sells to Zaxby's.
Wow.
So they get the full circle of not just the cow, but then they get to eat what we raise.
That's awesome.
And getting Zaxby's catered in. Our local Farm Bureau sponsors that meal.
Okay.
So shout out to Lamar County. And then we do, I have a water slide brought in on that Friday. And so it's a lighthearted day. We go jump on hay bales. We learn about hay. And so that's where it starts for me. It starts as a kid.
Okay.
That kid that may not ever know what a farmer really does. And by the end of the week, they may say, man, I want to be a farmer when I grow up because of what I learned at farm camp one year. And so then it's also bringing in, like what we're doing at Summer Leadership, bringing in our 19-year-old farmhand to go get just sponged up in what Farm Bureau has to offer. And that's the biggest thing. I looked at Farm Bureau as just a shout out, as just an insurance.
Yeah.
I had no idea the Federation side of Farm Bureau.
Yeah.
And I hate to admit that.
Yeah, I was
on
the same
this
way.
level.
I was the same way. So.
Yeah, they're like, Farm Bureau, you're kind of an advocate for, what does that even mean? You go out and sell insurance? No. So the advocacy starts there.
Okay.
It starts in, I want to start as the young kid, to branch out. That young kid maybe, man, I want to go drive tractors for a living.
Right.
I want to go play with cows and bottle feed a calf in the backyard because Miss Allie taught me that at farm camp, which we do, by the way. And so, I think that advocacy starts that low.
Wow.
And that's why I love the teacher level. It starts at that young, that low age to raise them up. They may never want to do it. That's fine. But at least they learn where their food comes from, the byproducts of a cow and all the things.
I mean, we hear the stories of the astonishing, kids. They don't have a clue, and I think that's a really, I've never thought of it that way. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
But that's awesome.
I think I kind of tiptoed around the question though, the succession planning part. I'm sorry, but I think the succession planning could start with the love of it that young first. Yeah. And succession planning now as an adult, it's so hard and it's so, it's. Do we talk to mom? Do we not talk to mom? Do we talk to dad? Do we not talk to dad?
Right, yeah.
We want to take over, but we don't want them to feel like we're pushing them,
Yeah.
So I think it starts for a love for it. You got to love what you do or you would not be in agriculture.
Yeah.
So.
Agriculture, I mean, it's not for the faint of heart, for sure.
No.
I mean, kudos to everyone out there that does that for a full-time living.
Right.
It's not easy. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this was great. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you for having me.
Am I missing anything? Is there anything you want to say or add?
No. I mean, I always put this plug anywhere. God was first farmer, and I'm honored that, he says to cultivate and tend the land, and I'm just blessed that I get to put my hands in the dirt where he basically put me in, and raised me up from. So it's an honor to be a farmer. Yeah. And I used to be like, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a farmer. No, man, I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
And I'm proud. We raise the two biggest commodities, beef and poultry, and it's an honor to feed the world and do what we do and love it. We truly do love it, or we would not do it.
Awesome. Well, great. I really enjoyed this, Allie. Thank you for making the trek in and spending some time with me on this lovely Monday.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Growing On podcast. If you haven't done so already, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. That would be greatly appreciated. And as always, be on the lookout in the coming weeks for our next episode. Take care, everybody.